Irwin, you are a gift to us tonight. Really, to come all the way from across the country with Judy, hours traveling, flight delayed, but here he is with us tonight. And it is a gift from Baba that you are here. And there's so much to say. Condensing it is really hard for me. So, for those of you who may not know, Irwin, very young age, had a deep desire to know God. And once he heard of Meher Baba, he said, I have to go and meet him. So, what obstacles you traversed to get yourself there? The first time, unfortunately, your brother couldn't go. We won't get into the details of that, although there are books you can read. um, so, Irwin had the good fortune to meet Baba in 1960, then the next year, 61, then the next year, 62, for the East West Gathering. And you would think in one's lifetime that that would be enough. And Irwin had a lot more to do, as Baba instructed him to go and share his experiences with as many people as he could. So, till today, he's been doing that in book form. And I think what's most inspiring to me is he and his brother for years traveled around the world when the technology had just come out with film and audio simultaneously at whatever cost. They didn't have much money to get themselves anywhere they could to hear the stories firsthand, not for themselves, but for prosperity, to document firsthand what people experience meeting Baba. And so hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours of film from Australia to Europe to the Middle East. He went to Iran and interviewed the Prem Ashram boys who were by then adults. So all of this has been captured. And the LA Center with the archive committee, Charlie McReynolds, I have to acknowledge him, who hours a day he spends putting this together to be shown on YouTube for all of us. And then we think that's enough. How much more can you do? He decided to make a movie, a film of Meher Baba, to capture his the footage of Baba bowing down to the mosque. And if you haven't seen it, my gosh, it's just an incredible movie. Baba's messages read out by Henry Kashauti, and these beautiful images of Baba. It's just so beautiful. 7 years it took you to do that or more. And so many beautiful poems you have written, and the books and the recounting that you'll, if you want, you can see in the bookstore. So I just can't thank you enough for being with us, and it is a gift from Baba. And please give a warm round of applause in welcoming our dear Irwin Lutz. Jai Baba. Jai. Oh, can I show the picture? I don't know if you guys can see. This is a image. It's in one of Irvin's books. Oops. Yes. So I don't know if you can see. This is Irwin and his brother standing next to Baba, and Baba gestured for a photographer. And Irwin, you told us it's like this, Baba said. And the photographer jumps up and takes this picture of them. Yeah. Way back. Yeah.
Here? Can everyone hear me okay? All right. What? All right. Well, it's a really great joy, really, to be here and to see your magnificent center that you've set up for Mayor Baba, which is really very appropriate considering that he's the avatar, that he's someone that comes once in maybe 1,000 years, 700 to 1,400 years, as he would say. And then people, for the first time, being given direct understanding of what he wants everybody to know and to understand and to feel, because Baba comes with a heart full of love. And this love is unconditional. It takes in everyone. It don't matter how good or bad you've ever been in your life, or the worst of the worst and the best of the best. You can be a saint or not. It made no difference to him, because in his work, he had to wipe out all the sanskaras, all the impressions of whoever comes to him, so that they can realize God. That was his mission, to help you to come up to his level. And he said it so many times, I come down to your level in order to bring you up to my level. And so the question always occurs, well, what is his level? What kind of level is he at that he wants to bring me up to? And then he does explain infinite bliss. He experiences himself as the only one in existence. Now, you try that out for a while. See if you can even imagine to be the only one in existence. But this one self is the self of everyone behind all the bodies and minds that we have. He sees himself as the very self behind the bodies and the minds of all beings. And it doesn't matter if it's of the subhuman life forms, whether it's of human beings, which we call him then God in human form, but then it's also for the same for those in the higher planes of consciousness, the higher states of consciousness. He's the one self behind everything. So there's nowhere else for him to take anyone but to know him themselves as himself. Now, this is what he came to reveal in this age. Nowhere have I ever heard in any of the religions where they said that you have to experience the God state of consciousness, which is latent within yourself. This is what he says. The God state is not someone else. This is not someone else. This is you as you really are, not as you experience yourself now, because we're not experiencing our full self at all at this point. But he comes into this world and into our understanding of things in order to tell us that. And so we gain the understanding of it, but not the experience of it. And when I went to see Mayor Baba, I wanted him to show me God. I wanted to see this after all these ages, and all the books that I've ever read and everything. They're all talking about God and the preaching about God and the telling everything about God. Let me see it already. I want to see what this is. You know, it's not enough to hear about it. You got to see it. And so, as things turned out, I came to hear about the avatar, about Mayor Baba. And it happened through my brother, Edward, who was not interested in any spiritual things. And at that time, he was pursuing a career in New York. So he went to New York to pursue his career. And he was very good, actually, when I saw him on the stage. But just the same, he goes into the library, the New York Public Library, a huge library. It had millions of books in it, no question about it. It had so many floors, and it was a big town library. And what does he do? He's looking for this book to help further his acting career, and he finds this book which is called Listen Humanity. He sees a book on the shelf, Listen Humanity. He says, "What kind of name is this for a book? What does this man want to tell the whole world?" His book, Listen Humanity. What does he want to say? So he takes the book off out of sheer curiosity to see what this is. And then, of course, we all know it was a book that Don Steele about his 3 weeks with Mayor Baba in India with the other groups that came together to live with Baba for a week each. Now, he reads some of this and he really liked it. He liked what he was reading. So he calls me up and he tells me, Irwin, I read this book about a master who lives in India and he says he's God, and this is something you should know about and read about. Well, in those days, I was already having uh, what I would say inner guidance. Uh, I won't go into that too much, but I was having it. It was for real for me. However, anybody may think and believe it, but that's what was happening. And then I thought, well, it's nice, that he found something, that he likes and believes in, and good for him. But I could not relate to what he was saying, because I felt I'm being inwardly guided. Who needs anything with anybody else? So in the now here's what happened. In this uh, thought of inner guidance, uh, I began to have a distinctive direction that I was given at that time to go to New York, because if I did, I'd gain a communication with God. So my dad was working with him, and he's the greatest materialist there is. He's a self-made man. He thinks that whatever he says or does is the correct thing. It's right. You couldn't argue with him about anything. So my father, I tell him, I said, I'm going to New York because I have to see what's going to happen when I go there. I didn't want to tell him what it was because I knew how he would think about this. So but he's very persistent. And my dad, in spite of the fact of his attitudes that he had about things like this, uh, he was also a very smart man. And he said, so he's persistent, and he keeps asking me, well, come on, tell me, what is it that's going to happen in New York? Why you want to go to New York? Finally, I thought, oh, well, I've got to tell him this. I said, I think if I go to New York, I feel that there's something that's going to happen where I gain a communication with God, to my father. And he listens to this. And to him, this is the most far out thing that you could possibly say. It's so impractical. What do you mean you're going to go to New York? He says, you think you'll go up into the mountains and you'll talk to God, and God will give you his commandments, and you'll come back down, and then you're going to tell everybody what happened, and you want to be a prophet for a living? This is the way he thought. So I said, look, Dad, that's already been done, and I'm not going to do this. But what God does, he does, and I'm going to go and see what happens. That's it. So then he tells me, never mind. I'm not going to say anything more. You'll forget about it if I don't say anything, but if I say something, you'll want to rebel and go, and I won't say nothing. So he wasn't going to say anything. That was good. Now I didn't have to think I had to talk to him about it. And I left 2 weeks later. And when I went, uh, I'm really telling you a story that I've told before. But anyhow, I went, and I went with $70 in my pocket. And anybody that goes to New York knows you don't go with $70 because it's a very small amount. What can you do with that? Even then, even in those days. But I went to this hotel that my brother also had been staying at. Uh, the hotel was named the Hotel Remington, which had on their stationery absolutely fireproof. I said, why do they have to advertise this? So this absolutely. All right, and that didn't matter. So for 4 days, I was doing a certain meditation that always was very successful for me, but now nothing was happening at all. And here I've come for God, and I'm thinking, I'm here for God. And I don't know. I'm waiting for something to happen to find out what's going to be. And nothing is happening, and 4 days goes by like that. Then I remembered that my brother had told me that there was a priest in a church next door to this hotel. And then he said, why don't you go talk to him? And like I've said before, this man's name, so I did. I went to see him, and The man's name was John Dam. Thinking, what kind of name is this for a priest? John Dam? But all right, it didn't matter. So that's his name. So then I thought, well, all right, I'll. So we began to talk, and actually, he was a really nice guy, and we were having a nice conversation. And he said to me, "What you should do," because I told him why I was there. He said, "What you should do is read this book, Autobiography of a Yogi." It was about Yogananda, this yogi, who practiced a certain uh, meditation, a certain uh, meditation, which was the Kriya Yoga that he called it. And this here was given to him by his master. And so I learned about masters because I had no idea about such people that living in the world, who these people could possibly be. So, but he was explaining about how he was given this cosmic consciousness and experiences, and he saw the universe, and oh, it was really quite remarkable the things he was explaining of his own experience, and that impressed me. It's, oh, master can do this. So then I remembered what my brother talked about Meherabad. See, now the connection is made. This Meherabad, I've got to read that book that he talked about because this really interested me. And so I got the book, Listen Humanity, and then when I read it, there was a part in there where Baba spoke of himself as the highest of the high. And the way, and his love, the way he would bow down to the poorest of the poor and tell them that God was equally in them as in himself. But the difference was that they didn't experience that. And he said he did, and he would help them, and he would help. And that, that made sense to me. God is in them too, and not only just in him, and he's going to help them to see it. Well, that was nice. That was good. I'm appreciating it. And then there was this message that he gave called the highest of the high. And he said he was the highest of the high. He was the master of masters. He was God the beyond and God in human form when he would come into human form. And that it was his purpose is to bring others up to his own level. And that's why he came as the avatar in the human form, because we can see him and communicate with him like that, but we couldn't do that in his universal state. So he comes in the human form. And I said, I really got to go meet this man. He's the highest of the high. I never met the highest of the high before, and now I want to meet the highest of the high. I was so glad he was the highest because I didn't, because when I started to read the book, I was just hoping that this Mayor Baba was up there, high, somewhere, not to be some low conscious person, saint or somebody. Yeah, anyhow, anybody on the intermediary path. I wanted him to, I wanted somebody that was really up there. And now he's saying he's the highest of the high. Oh boy, can't get higher than that. So say I gotta meet him. And so this is where it all began, where I wanted to meet Meher Baba. And then I thought, I know what I'll do. I'm going to write to Mayor Baba, and I will tell him that I'm coming because I was hoping I was trying to work my way across on a boat. I had no money to do anything, so I had to work on a boat to work my way across. I thought I could do that, except I couldn't get any boats. Now that would take me. Nobody would take me. And then I just thought, well, I'll have to bide my time and see how I can manage it. So I go back. In the meantime, Baba did answer me, and he said that I could come to see him for 1 hour only, and then he would give me his instruction, and I could return right back to where I came from. So that was another thing. Do you want to go for an hour halfway around the world with all the expense and effort and everything? No sightseeing, nothing, just straight there and back, and then straight back after 1 hour in between. So, so you have to consider that part. But then when I remembered reading in the book that Baba said, even if the worst scoundrel stood before me and I had to wish I could make him realize God in less time than the flash of a second. So I said, well, it doesn't take long. What he can do. The question is, will he do it? So, so anyhow, reading that, I put aside all question of time, and I just wanted to get there. But like I said, I couldn't just get there. Uh, I had no money to go, and there was no boats that ships I could get on that I could work my way across, or nothing was working out. So I went back to Miami, and I was working there with my dad again. And this time, a letter comes from Monty. And Monty writes in this letter, she says that Mayor Baba will soon be entering seclusion, during which time he will be there for about 6 months. Uh, and then when he enters seclusion for 6 months, during that time, he will receive no visitors or correspondence, except in an emergency, you could send a telegram. And that's what it said. Well, that did not go well with me, because when I thought that he's going to go into seclusion for 6 months, now it's another 6 months. It's already been 6 months. Oh, this is too much. Now I became desperate. And in desperation, I got the thought and the idea, because I wanted to really badly see him now. And I got the thought that what I should do is what I should have done in the first place. And I sat down and I wrote another letter to Bob. But this time I said, Dear Baba, I want very much to have the benefit of your love, your direction, and your guidance. But the thing is, I don't have the money to make the trip, and I can't see where money should stand in the way of such an ideal. But I know if it is your will, I'd be able to come, providing it's your will. And I sent this letter off, just like that. Now I put the whole thing in his hands, because nothing worked out. Nothing I was doing was working, whatever. Back comes a letter real fast. I was amazed how fast it came back. But the letter comes back, and it has one sentence in it. Don't worry, circumstances will adjust themselves. Love, Mayor Baba. You think, wow, this is pretty good. Circumstances will adjust themselves. I had no idea what was going to happen. Something has to happen here. And uh, if I want to cut the story a little short, I can just tell you 2 weeks later I'm there with him, you see. But people ask me, well, what actually happened? How did the circumstances work itself out? So if you want to know that part, I can tell you, but otherwise I can go on with this here. What? Oh, you want to know that? Okay. Who knows? It can work like that for you as well, because Baba was very generous. He didn't do things as just one person. It spread out for everybody. So here's what happened. Uh, my father tells me that he's going away on a short vacation, and he wants me to take over in his business, to do some advertising, sell some property. He was in the land business, where he would buy a large parcel of land, and he subdivided into smaller parcels that people could afford to get. So that was his business. And he wanted me to take over just while he's gone, just to have something to do there. So I was never interested in the real estate. I was more interested in the spiritual side of things. But now I had a reason. So I said, okay, I'll do it. And I decided that if I'm going to do this, I got to put a big ad in the newspaper. We got to sell this thing out. I got to make some money here in order to be able to go to India, also with my brother. So I put this, so I create this giant ad. It's a full page ad in the Miami Herald, in the newspaper there, a full page ad advertising this property for people to come and buy it. And then there would be a third page ad going in on Sunday. You see, the first day is a Saturday and the second day is a Sunday. third day. So and the rates on a third page ad is like double what it is on any other day. So this was going to be expensive. It was going to be some thousands of dollars for this advertising. But I wanted to see if I could just sell as much as possible. The bigger, the better. More and more people should come and just be able to earn enough to go. That was my plan. All right. So the ads put in for the newspaper, and they're getting ready to put it in on the weekend. And my dad comes back and he says, "Son, what did you do while I was gone?" He had no idea. So I told him, "Well, I'm putting some advertising in. For the weekend, we're going to have people come and buy some property." "Oh, that's very nice. Can I see the ad?" "Yeah." I said, "Sure." And I pull out this big proof of a full page ad like this. And he says, "What? This is thousands of dollars." So I said, "But there's another ad going on Sunday." And also, just in case, we want to have it, make sure. Well, he says, "I'm calling the newspaper. I'm canceling all these ads." So he calls up the newspaper and they tell him, "Too late. The deadline is passed. The ads are going in." So this is the way I was going to make money to go to see Baba, you see. Anyhow, this is the way, the story. Now comes Saturday, and we have the salesmen are in the office, and there's a movie projectors of the property, and there's all the equipment, and there's even a policeman at the door to usher the people in. And, it was really quite a setup. And everything was all ready for people to come and contracts, what they could sign and what they could buy and all of that. Now, it's Saturday and it's 8 o'clock. Everybody is now in place, and it's 9 o'clock, and then it's 10 o'clock. And we don't have anybody coming yet. 11 o'clock, and then it's 12 o'clock, and there's nobody, not even anybody shows up. To 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Finally, there was one woman that came in and she said, "I can't even put down the whole deposit of $25, but I can put down $5. Will you accept that just so I can get something?" I said, "Oh boy, yeah, we'll accept your $5, whatever you want to do. Just do whatever you want." And that was it for the entire day of Saturday, in which this big full page ad, which is it's a miracle that nobody showed up. You see, and then you talk about a miracle happening, no one showed up. That was the miracle. So, so now comes Sunday. Now, and my father was not bad. He just that's the way it is. So Sunday comes, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock. Not one person. 11 o'clock. It's about to hit 12 o'clock, and I said, in my mind, I directed my thoughts straight to Mayor Baba, and I said, "Baba, if you want me to come, you're going to have to do something right now. I need a miracle right now. You can't even wait. You have to do it right now." And then all of a sudden, I start to hear this rumbling sound, like a noise, a rumble. And it's getting louder and louder and louder. And it's coming towards the doors of the office where we were. And soon the salesmen that were waiting for people begin to hear it. And everybody is listening to the sound getting louder and louder and louder. And then suddenly, the doors of the office had these double doors. They swung open, and in comes a huge bunch of people. There was so many people, the whole place was filled up with people in no time at all, and everybody wanted to buy something. And this went on for 6 hours until 6 o'clock, from 12 to 6. And for this time, people were calling on the telephone. "We can't come, but if you can send somebody over here, we want to get something." So I was going out to sign people up on contracts with going out where they were. And then the others were coming in, and it was a booming business done that day, booming. And then at 6 o'clock, everything stopped. Boom, just like you drop a curtain down, stop. Everything stopped. But there was a big amount of business done. A lot of money, not only to cover the ads, but to much more on top of that. So I said to my dad afterwards, I said, well, I guess we did pretty good today because I'm thinking, I want to have this money now to go to India. And he says, I did some pretty good sales too, telling me what he did. Now, he was not to be outdone, you see. Anyhow, I said, okay, Jan, look, I want to go see Mayor Baba, and that's what I would like to do. And I feel like I've earned enough the money to go. And he says, oh, money was never the problem. I said, it wasn't. What was the problem? He says, it's the principle of the thing. If you going to India to see some man that says he's God, and you going out there just like that, and uh, anybody could say anything, and you going, how can you be taken in like this? I said, look, Dad, I'm not being taken in. Uh, if you knew more about what Mayor Baba has said and done, you would probably think differently, but you don't know anything. So find out a few things, read something. So anyhow, he didn't want to do anything. And he's still the boss. But the one thing he did do, which made it legitimate for me, is that in what do they call it? In principle, he made me president of the company that was going to be where this land was that was to be sold. So I had actually a legal and legitimate right to do this, but he only did it, to try and make me feel I should be part of a business that he's in. That was his main reason for it. However, now I said to him, Dad, I really want to go. This is what I would like to do. And he says, nah, forget about it. This is ridiculous. The whole thing is ridiculous. And he was totally dead set against anything. He was not going to do anything. But I made up my mind. He could say what he likes. I'm still going to do what I want. And so Edward and I, so Edward and I went to I told Edward, go to New York, get our papers, the passports and whatever visa and everything in order, and I'm going to go and get the tickets. And so I just went to the bank, got whatever money I needed for it, and went to get the tickets. And then we left without telling anybody anything because there was no way to tell him without him objecting. So, okay, now I'm on the way, and we're in New York, and it takes about 6 or 8 hours before the flight is going to leave. During that time, my father being smart and also Baba liking opposition, went ahead and he discovers, he starts to say, where is Irwin? Where is Edward? Where are they? Where did they go? And he finds out, he goes to the bank, and the bank tells him, well, they took out some money to go. Oh, boy. Then he immediately knew that we were on our way because, like I said, he's no dummy. So he figured that one out real quick. And in spite of the fact, so now he calls the police, and the police come. Now the police are in the picture, and he tells them that there's a couple of men that have embezzled some money from the company, and and that one of the men is aiding and contributing to the delinquency of a minor, which is supposed to be my brother, you see. Well, uh, the police then come to the airport, and they're waiting for us. So they come there, and the police, they come and they say, okay, we're going to arrest you both because you have to come to the police station there's some charges against you. And so, well, we go to the police station, and this guy, this sergeant, is sitting there, and he's so mad about everything. He says, "We got you. We got you. You thought you're getting away with things, and you're on. We got you." And he, for 15 minutes, is cursing us and blasting us, and how the judge is going to put us away for years because of what we did. So I didn't even know what he was talking about until he says, "Well, do you want to confess?" So I said, "Why are we here?" He didn't happen to say why we were there. He just assumed that we knew. So I told him, I said, "We're going to India together. This is my brother, and my money is from my company, and I'm going to go there. And there's nothing wrong with that, is there?" And he says, "What do you mean that's your brother?" Because he assumed that this was somebody else that was in on the crime. So I told him that. I said, and then he turns to Edward and he says, "Are you his brother?" He says, "Yeah, we're brothers. We're both going." "And you're doing this voluntarily?" "Yeah, we want to go together." And anyhow, to make a long story short, my father flies in, and he now is there also, along with a lawyer. And and he says to the sergeant, "I taught them to walk, I taught them to talk, and I taught them everything, and they sent them to school, and look how they turn out." And when this sergeant heard this, he couldn't believe that this is why that they actually took time to stop us, because now he's seeing this whole thing. It's a family situation, had nothing to do with the law. And so he finally he goes and tells me, he says, "Now listen, this is a mistake. Uh, where you're free to go. You can go do whatever you want." But he says, "Do me one favor." So I said, "What do you want?" He says, "Don't get him so upset next time." And then that was it. Uh, so then I told my brother, because my father was still against both of us going. And my brother says, "Listen, you go. I'm going to go back with him. Just and I'll go with you, and I'll go with you next time, or you make a place for me, and I'll go next time." So he says, "Because we got to cool them off." So I said, "No, no, Baba said that we should come together. We should go together." So he says, "Yeah, but it's not going to work out. So you just go." I said, "Well, if you're not going to go, then I will go. But otherwise, we'll just find another way." But we didn't. So he wanted to go back, and he did. So I went to see Bob. Now, when I get there to see Baba, uh, he is waiting for me. And the car drives up. Merji, one of his disciples, took me to where Baba was when I got to Bombay. And then in Pune, where Baba was, he took me there. And Baba is waiting for me. And he's standing outside on the balcony. And Mayorji says, as the car pulls up, he says, "Baba's waiting for you. You should go now." And so I scramble out of the car and I shoot over to where Baba is. In the meantime, Baba went inside the room, and he's now in the room with a bunch of other people that were present there too. And the first thing that happens, I come in, and Baba is so welcoming. He opens his arms up and he embraces me, and he hugs me and kisses me on my cheeks, and he has me sit near him. And he says, "Now I want you to stay close." And this whole some 2 or 3 hours go by, and he says, "How long were you to be here?" I said, "Bobby, you said I could stay for an hour." He says, "It's already 2 or 3 hours. How can this be?" And he's asking everybody how this can be, and nobody knows anything. Then, so then Baba says, "Now you come every morning at 7:30. Margie will pick you up from your hotel and bring you back for lunch, and then you will be with me until I dismiss everyone." And then that was, in the meantime, he's to take you to see a different place each day. And the first place that he's to take you is to the tomb of Hazrat Babajan. That is where you go first. And when I went there with to the Samadhi of Babajan, Boy, she was a very impressive looking woman, because they had a photo of her on the tree where she would sit under, and that's where her tomb is. Those of you who may have been in India may have seen that. So this was, so then Baba asked, "How did you come?" And I said, "Baba, I was able to come because it was your will." Because I remembered I had written that in the letter, uh, if it was to be his will. And then he had me stand up and repeat it to everybody in the room. And that's what happened, you see, during that time. And he kept me there then for 2 weeks. I was with Baba then for 2 weeks. And wherever he went, he would have me go along also. One of the places that we went was to the home of Madhusudan, uh, because the story is this. Madhusudan had, well, I'm just going to backtrack for a second. Uh, when he said, "Don't worry, circumstances will adjust themselves," now you know how they adjusted themselves. And they did adjust themselves because Baba would not necessarily use any kind of occult methods. He didn't like to do that. He could if he wanted to, but he didn't do that. He liked to use the natural order of things, but he would work out the situation and circumstances which appeared very natural to yourself. And that's how he worked with people. You see, he works that way. From what I have seen with others as well, that's the way he works. So I just want to get to this part about Madhusudan. Madhusudan would sing ghazals to Baba, and Baba really loved his ghazals. And this was the heart's longing for uh, for God, that a person would be longing to see and to become one with the beloved, with God the beloved, and that was the theme of these ghazals. Well, he would sing to Baba, and Baba liked his singing very much. And then one day he said to Madhusudan that he would like to go and visit his home, his house. And Madhusudan said, "No, no, no, Baba, this is not a good idea to come to my house." And Baba said, "But that's what I would like. I'd like to come and see your, visit your house." And Madhusudan kept saying, "No, no, no, Baba, don't come to my house." So Baba said, "Well, why not? Don't you want me to come?" He said, "Well, my place is so tiny and so small, and you're like an elephant with all the people that come with you. There would be no room to fit everybody. So it's not a good idea to come to my house, because how would you fit everybody in? It wouldn't be good." And so Baba didn't say anything. He says, "All right, whatever." Then afterwards, when Madhusudan left, he calls one of his disciples over and he says, "I want you to call his wife." See, Baba always gets his way. You can't outfox the fox. But he's very nice. He's very tactful. So anyhow, he says to him, uh, tell the wife that, ask the wife when they're going to have the next celebration in their home. And let me know what that is. So they come back to Baba and they say, "Baba, she says that his birthday is coming up and that they're going to have a celebration for his birthday." So then Baba sends the disciple back. "Tell the wife that I'm going to make a surprise visit, and don't tell Madhusudan, but I'm just going to come and surprise him for his birthday." Like that. For his birthday, he's always going to come and surprise. And so does come. And that's when I came with Baba at that time to go up the stairs to where Madhusudan's apartment was. And you know what? There was a whole string of cars behind Baba as he goes, because so many people want to come with wherever he goes. But I was sitting in the car with Baba, and then when Baba went up to there I was right there behind him, and we come into, and they had a chair for Baba and sat down in there, and now everybody came in, and guess what? There was enough room for everybody. Everybody fit for just fine. And then Madhusudan comes in. And boy, was he surprised. He was absolutely shocked. Baba had been there with us, waiting for him in his house. And Baba said, "Now sing to me." And he would sing his songs, sings his songs to him. So these are some of the things that happened at that time. Uh, there was a lot of other things that occurred too. Um, at one point, when I was there with Baba in the morning part, because in the mornings, what would happen is that there would be the mail would be read to Baba. That would come from all over the world, from different countries, people writing different things to him. And I couldn't understand all the letters except for those that were in English. But then those letters that were read, Baba would uh, give a reply right away. He would reply, and Erich or whoever would write down the answers for the people writing. And then Baba would say not to send a certain letter at a certain time. Says, just wait until I tell you to send it. Because I felt that Baba really had a lot to do with these people first before they got the letter. So behind the scenes, he would work with them and help them. And then when they got it, it would mean everything. The timing would be perfect. Uh, that's the way it seemed to work. So uh, I'm sitting there also, and the day before, the night before, I should say, after Baba had dismissed everyone, Mirji took me to his home, and they were having dinner, and so I participated in that. But then I asked them, "Would you like to see a certain memorization feat that I was able to do?" And it had to do with memorization. And they would list from 1 to 10, and they would have a different object like a table, a chair. Number one is a table, number two, chair, number three is a house, number four is a star. It could be anything, any object that they could think of. And it would go down to number 10. And I would remember each object. And if they said, "What is number five?" I tell them what the object is. If they said, what is the uh, star, let's say, I would tell them what number that was. So, I could tell them all like that. It was a memorization thing. What does he do? The next day, we got sitting with Baba, and he's whispering in Baba's ear. He's whispering something. And Baba keeps looking at me, as he's whispering. He looks, and he looks at me, and and looks at me. I'm thinking something is going on here. And then Baba says, "You did this memorization for them. Why don't you do it for me too?" Now, my mind was not at all in a mindset to be doing anything at all for him, because I was sort of dazzled or bedazzled being with Baba, and my mind was only set on what I was looking with Baba and what thing. And now he wants me to do this. This was I thought, oh boy, I don't think I'm going to be able to do this very well, because my mind was just not set for that at the moment. Uh, but anyhow, I wasn't going to say no, so I said okay. And so they recite the numbers 1 to 10 and with the objects in each thing. And now it was my turn to be able to tell them what the answers were. And I was making a big, eh, I was getting a bad score on this. I got yes, and yes, I could tell them this one and that one, and then I don't remember that one. You go to the next one. Oh, and by the time I was finished with this whole thing, about half of them were wrong and half were right. which was a real bad score for me. I considered that a terrible score. But then what happened, as soon as I finished, Baba starts to applaud, and he not only applauded with his hands, but with his feet also. He's applauding. And everybody is applauding. You think it was the greatest success. And I thought, Jesus, I don't know how they can like this, because this was not a very good score. But I guess it was just the fact that I did it, in spite of the fact that I didn't think I could do it, and I couldn't. But but anyhow, Baba was very pleased. He was very happy with the whole thing. And it reminded me of when people would sing for Baba. Sometimes you'd get a really bad singer. It sounded more like croaking than singing. And Baba would encourage the person to do. He was always, helping you to to get better, to get better, to get better. And he had a very fine and loving way of presenting himself, because the thing wasn't the singing, it was what you're doing because he asked. And even the singer may have thought she wasn't no singer, that was good, but doing it anyhow just because he asked. And he appreciated that very much. And he was very happy that person would listen to him and obey him in spite of the fact of how they thought about themselves. Well, that happened also. And then some were really good too. And Baba appreciated the entertainment. He was very human. He was very loving, very nice, very friendly, very happy that you were there, happy that you could come to be with him. I mean, he was the kind of person that even if he never declared his divinity, you would really like him as a friend. He was always in your corner, and he was always considerate and helpful to you, and very tactful in the way that he spoke to you. And but he was no one to fool with. You could not just be absurd with him. That would not work. You had to have the proper respect for him, and you did know, and it was very clear. I mean, he would say very clearly, "I'm not this body. Don't mix me up with the body. I am everywhere in everything." And you don't experience that yourself, but that's what you will experience when the time comes that you are able to see what I see. To that extent, I'm sort of paraphrasing, but that's basically what he was saying. And you knew that he was not just any ordinary person, but at the same time he was very human, very loving and very human, just like a family member. Uh, you would care. He really cared for you, uh, and I was very happy to be in that kind of a company. And also, you never worried around him. This is another thing I felt I should mention about this worries. People worry about whether they're doing the right thing or not spiritually. There was no such worry about that with him. He was he took away your worries. And he would tell you, "Don't worry, I will see to everything." And he did. Everything, meaning everything, family, job, whatever it was, you're there with him now. That's what it was. If anybody has any question, go ahead and ask. Okay, that's a good question too. I felt like a long lost son that had one day come home. I could sum it up and say it like that. I also felt that he was everything that he said, because my mother had asked me uh, when she read the How to Love God. I had sent that to her because she wanted to know more about this Meherabad, and I sent her that. And my mother was the sweetest of women. She would do anything for anybody. And when she read that, she said, "He passes my test." And How to Love God, boy, it was so beautifully said by Baba. and she resounded with that. And then later she had correspondence with Baba too. You know, but I will say that I really had a great mother. She was so sweet and so really loving, very considerate, and she had 4 boys and took care of us. Boy, right? She knew how to take care of us, and she did a good job. So that, but that was how I felt about Baba when I first. So what I meant to say is that she asked me that when you go to see Mayor Baba, I want to know if he is all that you think he is beforehand. So I said, all right, I will tell you. But when, when I was there, I did send a message to her that Mayor Baba was not only all that I had thought, but much more. That was my answer. She liked that.
So, Irwin, I know you were thinking of speaking about 1969. You hear of Baba dropping the body, and within days you were at Meherabad.
Yes.
Maybe you could share a little bit about that.
Well, uh, that was the first Amartithi. And it was a time when people were that had come to that event of being at the going to the samadhi because Baba was placed in the samadhi. And when I arrived, it was on the 7th day after he dropped his body. It was the day of his internment, and it was February 7th. And I was able to help cover Baba. See, Baba was lying in the samadhi on a platform, the bottom of the box that he would be covered in. So the bottom was actually put under him. It was put on the bottom, and then he was lowered over that, put on top of that. And the box then was inverted like this to be placed over it, over him. So I held one end of the rope, and Edward and I were on one end, and there were others that were holding the other end, and we were going to lower the box over Baba. Now, Baba looked very much like, I mean, you could see his face. He was wrapped in the cloths that you saw in the photos, but he was also, uh, in my view, I felt uh, he's he's left his body, he's leaving his body behind, but people can come and feel the authority and the power of it, because Baba said that wherever his body is, that's where the power is. And so people come to that samadhi and they get a lot of their bindings and their sanskaras, you might say, washed away, because that is the purpose of the samadhi. People go and they get cleaned in that atmosphere, and they feel Baba's atmosphere. Now, Baba doesn't have to consciously be there, but he's left there for everyone. He's already arranged it, and people benefit tremendously coming to the samadhi of an avatar, and for perfect masters as well. So uh, when I was there, for 4 days, it was so intoxicating. The atmosphere itself around that, I never felt such an intoxication like I did when I came there, and it lasted for 4 days like that. Uh, Now, people were feeling this. It was not like going to a funeral and you're so sad that somebody died. No, like it was not at all like that with Baba, at least for me and for those that I saw. But for Mara, it was quite different. She was grieving greatly because she had such a close connection to him in his physical form that missing that was big. It was really hard on her. But for 20 years afterwards, she would meet everybody and talk to them, and they would come to her house on the porch where she sat, and hear the stories of what happened when she was with Baba all those years. You see that, so she had quite a thing to do, even as a mission after the time of his passing. And so for 20 years until she passed away, that's what she was doing. And but during the time of that first Amartithi, it wasn't even called Amartithi. It was just that Baba had dropped his body. I mean, the name Amartithi only came up later, which means essentially the same thing. But that was something different later. That it was called Amartithi time. But the time of the actual time when he dropped his body like that, it was quite unexpected because the Mandali were expecting, like so many people were, that he would break his silence and that he would be able to, and he would reveal, break the word, give the word to the world. No, no, there was some thoughts about that. It wasn't a big deal, but it was thoughts about that. And somebody asked me, well, did he break his silence, you know, bef- before he dropped his body? And my answer is, did you read the book God Speaks? God Speaks. He broke his silence in so many ways, you can't even count the number of ways. Just the fact of hearing his name was already a breaking of the silence that you didn't know about the human form of God. You can say that. If you want to read the things that he said, like you do in the, I put this book in there, The Silent Master Meherabad. It's titled, but you can get it if you want it. But the thing is, in there's a certain section dealing with all the many different things he said about his silence. When the word of my love breaks out of its silence to speak in your hearts, telling you who I really am, then that is the word you have always been longing to hear. Then you will have the word. This is the word that you have always been longing to hear. I mean, it's obviously he's not going to give a talk. And he even went to far to say that if you expect me to speak, to give a talk, then you didn't understand the meaning of my silence. So this silence means a lot of other things, and it's quite deep in what it means by the breaking of the silence. And Baba explained that. See, he explained that. Uh, and he said so many other things about the silence and what will happen at the time of breaking the silence and how you will know this. All of that was put, and I put it in that book too, because this is a question that people have, and they like to hear the different things he said. So I compiled those things. Yes. Yes. Uh, when I was there on my first visit, he he asked me, "Do you believe that I am the Avatar?" And I nodded yes. I said, I nodded yes. He went like this, speak up. So I said yes, and he said, uh, "Are you ready to obey?" And I said yes, and then he said, "What if I ask you to uh, eat food that you didn't like? Would you still do that?" So I said yes, I would do that. He said, "And if I asked you to walk about the streets of Amanagar here, the city, naked, are you ready for this too?" I said, "Well, yes, do whatever you said." Then he said, "And what if I wanted your head for me so that, because it would be important for some reason. Are you ready for that?" So now I was thinking, I'm going to say yes to everything. I don't care what it is. I'm not going to goof off on this. I'm not going to miss the beat on this. So I said yes. Who knows what you would do in circumstances, but I said yes. And then Mama just said, okay. And then he went on to other things. He did. There was other things happening, but you asked if there was any things that he said. He gave many instructions, uh, and some things were just simple things like take. He said take a very clean shave every day. See, it was a simple thing, and or to take and also take a bath every day. Uh, I was not so much concerned with myself that way to do this here, continue, every day like that. But because he said so, no, I do it like that. So now I'm as clean as a whistle, and I'm also shaving clean. You get me like that. I'm not going to grow a beard in this life. What else? Anybody else want to say something else? Well, and there were many instructions. For 10 years, we were getting letters and communications, and he wanted that we should write to him, whether even if he was in seclusion, whenever we moved. And we were moving around a lot in those days. What were you going to say? Somebody wanted to say something. The next year, the next year, 1961. I met him in 1960, and then we both escaped our father in 1961. And when I say escaped, I'm not kidding, because 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 we were always trying to be ready to go and see Baba whenever was possible, whenever he would call. And so in 1961, um, there was a letter that came from Mani, and she said that Baba would be seeing his lovers, and you could come for 1 hour within within any. Let's see, how did she put it? That you could come. That Baba would be seeing his lovers for 2 weeks, or 3 weeks. I think it was 3 weeks, and you could come for any one day in that 3 weeks for 1 hour, and you could see Baba then, but not. And because this was for such a short time, it was not particularly for people coming from long distances from the West. And she also said, Baba said that uh, if it interfered with family harmony, you shouldn't come. And if it interfered with your job, you shouldn't come. And if it interfered with your finances, you need not come because the time would be so short, and like that. So, uh, so somehow, okay. So what? So what happened was, we get this letter, and now we have the opportunity of going to see Baba, but it's for a brief time, and and there's all these conditions. So one of the conditions was that if it interfered with family harmony, you shouldn't come. You see, so now so I wanted to test my father. So we're having dinner one night, and I say to him, Dad, if I ever were to plan to go to see Mayor Baba again, would you try to stop us like you did last time? He said, well, son, I'm very glad that you're asking me this here. And of course, my answer is I absolutely would try to stop you. I would stop you. And I said, and what would you do? Would you call the police again? And he says, no, I don't think I need to do that, but I would have you committed. So I'm thinking, how can I tell him anything? I wanted to really tell him that I was planning to go. No, I think so. So my father, being as smart as he is, he says, "Do you have any plans to do anything?" I said, "Well, Father, I'll certainly, when the time comes, I'll probably most likely have to tell you everything. But I think that it's better that I ask you how you feel now." So now I knew. I sure knew. And then I said to my brother Edward, I said, "There's no way in the world we can tell him anything. He's going to try and stop." Us again, and we'll never get there. So, but then you see there were Baba's orders also if it interfered with family harmony. That was the first thing. Is there going to be now? What would you say? What are you going to say? Interfered with family harmony. So my brother says, "What? What is that? There's no problem with that. There's no harmony. There's no family." So that took care of that one, right? So then Baba said, "If it interfered with your job," and I was working for him. And so I thought, oh, well, what's my job on earth? My job on earth, I told my brother, is to know God. And Baba, to go to Baba isn't going to hurt. To know God, we need to do that. That's our job. That's the real job. That's the real job for us. So that took care of that one. And then finally, finances. Well, we were going to use all the money that we possibly had just to make the trip and everything. There would be no finances after that. So, so the finances, I said, what are finances for? If you can't better yourself in life, what are you going to do with them, with the stuff? You're going to just say, put it in the bank and keep it there? So no, I said, finances, this is what it's for. So then we so we rationalized the whole thing. We settled the whole matter. And we just then we escaped. We went to New York, caught the flight, and went to India. And now we're there with Baba. And I remembered that Baba always wanted us to stay close, and so my brother, for the first time, got to meet Baba like that. And Baba embraced him and hugged him and had him sit near him, and me too. And when I came up to Baba, he gave me a big embrace and hug, and I kissed him on his cheek, and he sat down, and then I sat down there. I said, "This is the way to do it." And now but you see, also it was in my mind, obviously there's some rationality. Did I rationalize this correctly, or am I just making things up, and I shouldn't even be here? And how would Baba really feel about it? But now he was apparently very happy with us. Then Baba called me to stand on one side of him and Edward on the other side. And he began to tell everyone in the room, there was around 200 people present in Guru Prasad Hall at that time. And he said to them, these are the Luck brothers, and they've come a long distance over continents and oceans. And Baba went on to explain all the difficulties of the trip. And he said that such love must be rewarded. He kept saying this. And he was telling everybody that such love must be rewarded. And then he went like that, and this man jumps up with the camera, flashes a picture, and sits down. And that's the picture that she was showing you earlier. You see, that's the way it happened. So we were very happy to, and felt that we made the right decision. You see, that was it. This was not we didn't rationalize it. Baba was very glad that we found a way to break through to come and see him. Now, an interesting thing happened. There was a girl that wrote to Baba, and this letter was read out because this girl had written to Baba asking if it's all right for her to go because her parents were very opposed to her going, and that she wanted to know if Baba uh, what whether she should go because she didn't want to hurt her parents' feelings, but at the same time she wanted to go and wanted to know from Baba what she should do. So this was interesting. So Baba just went like this, said, "Why did she write? Why didn't she just come? You see, why is she writing? Now I have to take into consideration her parents, and I have to take her into consider. I have to take everybody into consideration. Had she just come, she would be here. But now he said, see, he would take. So he wrote back that she should get their permission. And by her love for them, that they would then begin to love him. And then she could come at that time. Something of the sort. That was the theme, the general idea of what she wrote. And we're sitting there listening to this. We're hearing this whole thing, that interplay that's going on between the parent and the kid that wants to see Baba. So we felt we really made the right decision. Okay, but I did want to test my dad. I would much have liked it if he would have agreed that it was okay now, but he wasn't going to do that. Now, just to give you another side of this picture, in the following year, there was the East West gathering. My dad was also still against Mayor Baba, didn't want us to go. But this time, he wrote to Baba, and Baba then said to him and to us that we should get his permission to 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 that we should yeah, we should ask his permission to come. And he's that's what Baba said for if we were to come, we should ask his permission to come. So we were determined to go. This was the East West gathering, and we decided that we would ask his permission. So I went up to him in the morning, and I said, "Dad, I'd like to have your permission to go." And he said, "Absolutely not. No, there's no way that I'm going to give you permission to go." So I said, "Okay." But Baba didn't say that we had to do what he said. He only said to ask his permission, which I then asked his permission. And then we went, you see. And Baba was very happy when we were there. There was no problem with that. You have to, you see, when it comes to God, whatever you do to get closer to God, this is what I've learned, is always the right thing. And it's not only the right thing for yourself, but it's the right thing for everyone else that you're connected with, because there's nothing that can happen except they'll benefit from it. And then eventually my father became very pleased with Baba and felt that Baba understood him because of the things the way Baba would say. Baba told him everything that he wanted, but he said it in such a way that we could still do what we wanted. There were so many things that happened at that time. It was quite amazing. Any more questions? What? We were together right in the beginning. When I arrived there the first time during my visit, Baba said I could come for 1 hour, but he kept me for 2 weeks. And during that time, uh, there was an incident in which Baba told Francis that, and he told me, he said to me to go outside after Baba dismissed everyone. He wanted me to go outside with Francis, and I should ask Francis whatever questions that I had in mind, and Francis should answer all the whatever questions that I had. And that was what Baba said. Now, it seemed like that is where it would end, just ask. And see, I never thought of asking Francis anything because I'm here with Baba. If I'm going to ask anybody, I'll ask Baba. And Francis was not the type of person that cared to be answering questions either. So the two of us are sitting. I don't care to ask him, and he don't care to answer. And we're sitting, and I have to ask him, and he has to answer. You see that? Because Baba said so. This had a big reason, which didn't unfold for about 15 years later. When I wanted to go to Australia to film the stories that the people there had when Baba visited, and what their personal stories were with Baba. So, of course, Francis was a major figure because he had been with Baba for 10 years. And then Baba dropped his body, and then he decided to go back, and then now I'm going around filming these people and getting their stories. So I wrote to Francis, and I was just talking about this afternoon. I wrote to Francis that I would like to come and film his stories a bit, and he should tell me about what happened when he was with Baba. And Francis wrote back and said, no, he's not going to do this. Doesn't want to do it. He doesn't want to film me to film him with the stories. So I wrote to him again, and I asked, people would, I believe, in the future, all would like to really hear what you have to say, since you had so much contact with Baba, and it would be important, that you be someone that people could hear what happened. And he said, so he writes back and he says, no, he's not going to do that, and not to ask him again. So I'm thinking, what am I going to do about this here? He is definitely someone that should be interviewed uh, because he was with Baba for 10 years. He's one of the major figures. So then I'm thinking to Baba, what should be done? Is this somebody that you would like me to film or not? It's up to you. So then I remembered something. All of a sudden, the memory comes back. And I wrote back to Francis, and this time I knew I had him over the barrel. I said, Francis, you remember when we were together with Mayor Baba? And Baba said that I should ask you, that whatever questions I had, I should ask you, and that you would answer them. So do you think that, so that, do you, do you think that after all this time, his order still stands? That whatever I would ask, because I have questions to ask in regards to the film. And if you think this order still stands, then I'm coming anyhow. I'm going to film whoever's there to answer this, and you can ask you too. And then I just left because there was no time for a reply now. I was on my way, and I thought to myself, well, if he wants to answer questions, he can. And if he doesn't want to do it, he doesn't have to. I'll just film whoever wants to do it. And that was all that there was for Australia. Well, as it turned out, he not only greeted us so warmly, and he greeted me as well. And he was he said, here, you're in Avatar's abode. Here's where Baba's home is, and this is what it was built for him. And he says, you should ask me whatever you like about the house and about this and that. And then he said, will it be all right if you ask me these questions? I said, yes, it's very good. It is perfect. It's perfectly all right. Because that was the whole point of everything. And then and then because it was also Christmas, all these other people were coming, and I was filming so many people at the time. But we did a big film of Francis also, and he was very cooperative, and he just couldn't have been better cooperative at the time when we were there. And so it happened like that. And he, so he asked me, before this all started, he said, what actually did you ask me when I was there in 1960, when we were sitting on the bench? What did you ask me? And I actually remembered what it was. And I told him, why was it? He just nodded his head like that and said, yeah. And then he was all set. Now that cleared the decks. He was ready to tell me everything. And he did. And now everybody can see those films. You see, it's there. It'll be there for posterity. And just so that you know, you're the posterity that is there for. Who do you think posterity is, anyhow? It's you and everybody else that comes after you.
What year did you begin
What, him? Oh, when we started to film in the first place, it was in 1970. And then it went on for about about 7 years. Uh, we made many trips, various trips throughout that time. And I went with people that joined me to be helpful with the filming. They were my film team. and we went everywhere, and we ate with the people that we filmed, and we were in their homes, and we stayed there. We didn't have much money to do all the filming, but we had enough when everybody was assisting with it, uh, and we could live in we could be staying in the homes of the people we were going to be filming, and we ate with them, and it was like a family. Even though we didn't know them from before, I mean, everybody was new, but I had the opportunity of actually hearing the incredible tales that these people told about their experiences with Mayor Baba. That was really amazing time for all of us. And, it was a really great time, those travels. And there was a lot of really extraordinary things that happened, miraculous things. Uh, I'll just tell you one of them. We were going from India to Pakistan to film the people in Pakistan from India after we had toured India. Now, when we arrived in Pakistan uh, at the customs, they don't allow any film equipment or anybody at that time during their emergencies that they called it to do any filming, bring any film equipment into Pakistan. So we're at the airport there, and we arrived, and now we come to we have to check in at the customs, and the guy says that the custom agent says, "Oh, no, 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 no. You can't bring any of this in. We're not allowing this here. You have film equipment. What are you going to do?" I said, "Well, we're going to film some people in Pakistan here that tell us good stories about their lives." So he says, "No, no, no. We don't allow it. This is not allowed." So now I do the one thing that I always do when there's a problem, and especially if it's a Baba project. I talk to Baba. I said, "Baba, they're not allowing us in here. How are we going to film these people? They have to tell their stories. And so you need to do something." All of a sudden, we see this guy comes. This man was like Mr. Authority. The way that he walked in and the way he came, and he is looking around, and he's like some official, and he looks and he sees us, and he walks over to where we are, and we're this customs guy that's denying our entrance, and he's saying, "Wait a minute, what's happening here? What are these people doing here?" And he says, "Well, they want to bring all this equipment in, and we don't allow it, so we're telling them that they can't do this." He says. So he turns to me and he says, "What are you doing? Why you want to go in there?" I said, "Well, we're just going to film a few people, and that's what we're doing in Karachi." So he says, "I don't see anything wrong with that." He says, "Let them in." He did it with such authority. You see, "Let them in." So he says, "Wait a minute, we're not allowed to do that." He says, "Are you questioning me?" And this is the way he talked. So he says, "Oh, no, I'm not questioning you." So we came in. Then Minu Karas was meeting us at the airport there, and he's standing on the side, and he's watching this whole thing from the side where he can see it. And we come through with all the equipment that we had, and there was plenty of it. So he says, "I don't believe this. You actually were able to come through here. They don't allow it. They don't allow nothing like this here." And you could. I said, "Well, that's right. We did." He was it's like shocked that this was possible, because this does not happen. Well, then there was another thing, that while we were there was this must, and Minu was one of the people that would go and get a must when Baba wanted these musts brought to him. And when Baba was in Pakistan, uh, this must was one of the musts that he visited, that was visited. And this must, Baba Minu said, was like of a six-plane must. And he was a chargeman for the area from the spiritual work that he had to do. And this, and he said that this must, if you approached him, and especially with camera or anything, he throws stones at you, to make you leave. He didn't want anything. But now, when we went out, I said, well, I want to film him. And you can tell what Baba did with him. So we go into the market area, and he spots the must. And the must is now moving quickly into an alley. So we go into the alley, and he says, and the must, he says to the must that these from the U.S., they want to come and film you for Meherabad. And the must is as gentle as you can be. And he just was so cooperative. And Mino says, I never seen him like this. He does not do like that, but he's doing it now, and he's being very cooperative. And my brother, the way that he was also using his camera, was going practically into the face of the must himself, like this. I thought even I thought that's a little too close, But the must just allowed him to do. And then Mino later said, that must is dressed with rags, but now he looked clean and he was dressed nicely for what he is. And he just allowed everything to be done. Because I felt that Baba just arranges what he wants. And this was a very important project for his lovers in the present and the future. So there was many instances like that where amazing things would happen. When we had to go into Australia, there was another thing. In Australia, they also are very, very careful about whoever comes in, especially if you're coming in with film equipment. So we're at the airport now. We arrived in Australia, and we're at the airport, and I see that they have these custom agents in different cubicles, like tables that you can put your things on, and they inspect everything. Well, but the way they had arranged it is that there's a line of people, and then there's one customs man that points to which table, which person you're to go to, where they're going to inspect you. And I thought, oh boy, how are we going to get through here? So I said, Baba, please take care of this here. So as our turn came, and we have all these wagons with boxes of all kinds of equipment and whatnot, and we're pushing the boxes, and the customs man says to me, he says, now you go straight. So we go straight. Going straight means you go through the doors and you're outside. There was no, he didn't assign us to anybody. He just said, go straight. No, going straight means that you go straight outside. And that's how we got through there. So, but this is not normal because everybody had to go to some place to get their bags inspected. Everything had to be inspected normally. Now, my dad also eventually went to India, and with the family. He finally was ready to do that, and he accused me that he never met Meherabad because of me. I said, did you forget that you didn't want us to go? Did you forget that part? Anyhow, but he did, and he took my mother and my other brothers, and he's the kind of person, he's like a king in his own way. when he decides that he's going to do something, then everybody's got to go. If he doesn't want, if he decides not to do it, then nobody goes. That's that's the mentality. But uh, but anyhow, he goes to India. But before he goes, he decides that he wants to go to all of the different cities, the mayors' offices of the different cities, and get their uh, to get the keys to the city. He wants to give the keys to the city to the mayors in Bombay and other cities there. So he's going to be a goodwill ambassador. That's what he wanted to do. And then he would also go to Meherabad and he would meet all the disciples and whoever else. Well, um, at the same time, I was delivering a huge box, which was a wooden box with slots in it for all the tapes. These tapes were like 67 reels of 7-inch reel tapes with 4 tracks on a reel. And this was a lot of the work that we had done, the audio portion of it, so that the trust would have this big box of tapes for their archives. And I was delivering that, so we had this, and it was in a huge box. It was like really big, uh, and it was constructed of wood, but the box was in refrigerator cardboard. Uh, and now we put this on the custom agent's counter, and he says, "What's this?" I said, "This is a tape that's for Meherabad, for Meherabad." He says, "Oh, well, we're going to have to open up this and we're going to have to take a look at this." And I said, "No, no, no, you can't do that because it's so difficult to wrap all this up. You can't." And we have to do that. No, no, we have to wrap it again. It's going to be too much trouble. We can't do that. He says, "No, no, you're going to have to do that. We have to see what it is and see if there's any duties to be paid and all of that." He's going on with this. So I'm thinking again, how are we going to manage this? So I think, okay. I say, "Do you know who that man is?" So he says, "What?" I said, "That man there." I'm pointing to my father. He says, "No, I don't know." I said, "You don't know that this is the goodwill ambassador from the United States to deliver the keys to the cities from America to India? You don't know this?" I'm dramatizing what's going on. So he says, "No, I didn't hear anything about that." I said, "Well, you don't want to disturb him because the mayor here and the other officials will not like that. They're going to want to know who it is that's creating any difficulty for the goodwill ambassador." Yes. So he says, "Oh, wait 1 minute," like as if I'm going somewhere. He says, "Wait 1 minute." And he goes over to the chief of the customs agents, the one that runs it, and he's talking to him, and this chief, if you took a look, he really looked like a chief. He would stand with his chin up, and he would walk with a walking stick behind him, and he would come and this was Mr. Authority in the customs side of the India, Air India. So he comes up and he says, "Can I help you?" I said, "Yes, you certainly can. We're going through here and we would want to just be able to go to our destination." So he says, "Well, all you need to do is put this box that you have and other things, whatever there is, on the counter, and they'll open it and they'll see it. And there may not even be much duty, who knows? So if you do that." So I said, "Listen, I don't think you understand who this is that's here. Do you know who this is?" He says, "What do you mean?" He says, I tell him, "This is the goodwill ambassador. He's come from the United States. He has the keys to the city for U.S. to bring to India. And you don't know about this here? What's the matter with you? How come you don't know this?" He says, well, I haven't heard anything about this. Do you have any documentation or papers or something? And I said, well, of course. And now here's what happened. When he was back in the States, he would go into the mayor's office and he would tell them that he wanted to have a letter from the mayor stating that he's the goodwill ambassador and that he's presenting the keys to the city. So the secretary that we came into that particular office from Miami, she says, "Oh, wait a minute, the mayor is not here. He can't do this." So I said, so he says, "No, no, it's okay. Yeah, I'll dictate the letter and you can just write it up like that." She said, "But hey, but he's not here to sign it." So then I chimed in and I said, "Well, you can sign it because the secretary often signs for the boss." So she does it. She actually, my father actually dictates his own letter of introduction to the and the mayor is not even there to sign anything, and he's made this whole thing up, and they give him the keys to the city, and then he's able to leave. This is the way things work. It works in our family, you see. This is how it works. But this is all worked out by Baba ahead of time, I'm sure. Otherwise, I don't see how this could happen. So now we got this. So he gives, and he went to the other mayor offices and did the same thing. Anyhow, now he's got all these keys. And the guy, so we give him the letters and he goes to the side, and all the customs men begin to circle around him like a football team. They circle around him and they all talking and they looking at these letters and everything. And he comes back over to me and he says, "Do you actually have keys?" I said, "Well, of course we have the keys." And I pull out the box, you know. He give him one of the box. My father says to my mother, "Show him the box." Says, you know, hardly a goodwill ambassador would talk like that, but he does. You know, that's the way he talks. So he takes the box, and I take the box, and then I just gently open it up like this. You know, this is Miami, 4 million people. Click. Then we take the next one. This is Miami Beach, 2 million people. Click. And this is the way I'm doing it. I'm making it as dramatic as I can. And then finally, this is Dade County, 24 million people, 16 cities. Click. I go like that. And he says, "Do me a favor." He asked me. I said, "What favor do you want?" He says, "I want you to take that box and just go through here and don't mention nothing to anyone that you went out. Just just take him. Just go. Just go. Don't say nothing to anyone." I really don't. And I said, "Yeah, I can do that for you." And we're out of there. And I have to say, this is the way I feel Baba works. When he wants something, everything's going to happen. And it can be, in retrospect, it can be amusing as can be, because you can really see the joke of it, the whole thing. The whole thing is like a story. And that's how we were able to go through with all these films and everything and make the films. And in that case, we were delivering a huge box of soundtracks of all these people that we did to the center, to the Baba Center. Whenever we had to go through customs, there was always something that was going on this trip. But we just went ahead and did what we had to do, and that's what we did. What else? Anybody else want to say something? You know, Baba said he caught me in the nick of time, so there you have it. Yeah. What were your experiences in Iran when you went there in 1976 with Meherabad? Yes, it must have been about then. I went to Iran and filmed Esfandiya Veseli, who had also wonderful experiences with Baba. And one of the things that happened with Islandia, you see, I also filmed so many of the other people that were in the Prem Ashram, uh, and you'll be able to see all their stories and what they said during those periods of time. But now, just to get back to him, Esfandiya Vesali was wanting to see Baba in 1962 when Baba held the East West gathering. And he uh, didn't have money to go. And so he wrote to Baba that he wanted to come very badly to see him because he was in the Prem Ashram also uh, as one of the boys. And Baba gave him some divine experiences, which he was having right till the end of his life. Uh, and he and he said that he wanted to go and see Baba, but he didn't have the means to make the trip, and he wanted to know what Baba would say that he should do. So Baba wrote back to him and asked him what he does for a living, and he said he has a grove where he has trees, and in the trees he sells the fruit, and that's how he so, makes his living. So Baba said that he should now go through the rows of trees and he should talk to the trees and tell them that he wants to go to see Baba, the avatar, and that they have to produce a lot of fruit, bumper fruit crop for him to be able to sell to be able to go. And he wants that the trees should now produce this fruit for him. This is what Baba told him. So he goes and he's going through the rows of trees and he's talking to the trees that this is what they have to do. And then he said that that year when the fruits were ready to be harvested, it was a terrible year because there was such a famine. I don't know. It's not called a famine. It's like what? Drought. Yes, a drought. Uh, that there was such a drought that none of the farmers were getting fruit from their trees. It was a terrible drought that was going on. But his trees were like bump crops. So because the price of fruit was so high at that time, since there was so little of it that it was being sold for a lot of money, he was able to have the money to make the trip to go to see Baba during the East-West gathering. So that's one of the things that we filmed him telling us about. And there was just so many people that they were speaking Farsi. We didn't understand Farsi necessarily, but who was it? It was Fahad was with us, so he could translate everything. Now we also went to Bandar Abbas in Iran. That's where um, Pakravan was living. He was given a six-plane experience when he was in, huh? Well, he was known as Little Baba, which is what Chota Baba means. But because he was given a six-plane experience during the time he was in the Prem Ashram with Baba, and he was probably the one that was given the highest consciousness at the time. And Baba uh, kept him there and called him Chota Baba, meaning Little Baba. Abdullah Papravan was his actual name. But then, um, when he came back, it was so anyhow he was in Bandar Abbas. That's where he lived, and we decided that we had to go see him. We wanted to see this six-plane person that he that was said in the book Sobs and Throbs that was written at the time is what his level of consciousness was. So, mm, so we were really looking forward to that. So we went to Bandar Abbas, and they said that he doesn't allow any filming of himself at this time because he was also the head of the Iranian Red Cross at the time. He was actually the head of it, the head of the whole Red Cross in Iran. So, but then we told him that this was for Mayor Baba because we wanted to hear his stories about Baba. And because it was for Mayor Baba, he says, now, if it's for Mayor Baba, you can come and visit. And so we visited him in his office in the Red Cross. And he began to tell us that he was not having this sixth plane consciousness now. He was instead, uh, Baba had, so we said, well, what did Baba do for you then since the time you left? He said, he made me honest because he would not do anything that was dishonest in any way because of Baba. And he said that he would, that he was now married and he had children and he was living on a very normal life. But he said that now, when Baba would to ever give him back that experience again, he would have it. But for now, he was experiencing to be honest, and that's how it was in a nutshell. But we have those films actually of him telling the whole story. I'm sure I left out a whole lot because I don't remember everything. Next.
His wife was one of the pioneers of women's movement in Iran.
Uh-huh.
She became evangelist Holly.
Is she a Baba lover too?
Well, I guess anybody business with that fellow thought
With him, would become one. Yeah.
the old king was exiled in 1941. When they took him to Bangalore, they had to ferry him in a dinghy,
They what?
in a little boat
Yeah.
to the ship, to the British ship, and there were no chairs worthy of the king to sit on. So somebody said, we need a good chair for the king. And somebody said, we can only find it in Abdullah Parker Mountain. So somebody rushed to Abdullah's house and brought a chair worthy of the king. And that's the way he left it.
Oh, I see.
Interesting.
Yeah. That's right. Well, I,
Okay. Keep going 10 more minutes or
well, if you want 10 more minutes, I can manage it. Okay. All right, 10 minutes more. One of the things that I've been talking about, which I feel is really important, is the experience that Bob himself has, to which he wants to raise our consciousness to. Baba, when he came into the world, did not come in to be God, and you think that God is someone up there, but it does not have much to do with your own experience. It's someone to be worshipped, to be thought of, even to be loved. But at the same time, the connection is not really where it is, in essence, your own self. Now, under Baba, that was changed. He wanted people to know that the God state of consciousness was a state of consciousness that is latent in each person, and that eventually it is your destiny to experience the state of consciousness that is the God state. And the reason that could be done is because Baba spoke of there only being one self. Now, one self in existence does not mean two or three or many. It means one. And the multiplicity of experience that we have, where we see so many of people, and everybody is outside of ourselves that we see, whether we're a good person or not, it makes no difference. It's still you're still seeing others as someone else, and that is not the reality, according to Mayor Baba. The reality is that behind the bodies and the minds of each and every one, there is one self. And that oneself is what you have to experience. And that's what the whole journey or the spiritual journey is all about. It is not going through the planes of consciousness. That is the experience that saints and yogis and others aspire for, because these planes are very beautiful and one is more beautiful than the next. You go through, and Baba spoke about there being 7 planes. Well, that is true. And that is the spiritual path as saints, yogis, and other such advanced souls would want you to go through. But the fact of the matter is, it is not at all what a perfect master does or what the avatar does. The avatar wants to take you to the reality. And these planes, according to him, are nothing but imagination and dreams within the framework of the mind. We all have a mind. We imagine with it, we dream with it, we experience with it. And Baba explained that the reason that this world looks so real to each and every one is because your consciousness has evolved to the full. And in the full consciousness, every detail of the imagination is seen clearly as if it were reality. Everything that you see is appearance real, because the consciousness that you have is now full and developed and fully real. But in the reality of things, that consciousness is meant to be turned around to see the self that is actually making all of this. Now, we can't even imagine such a thing. Try to imagine the one self. You can't imagine it. Well, because you can hear about it, we can understand it. And that's what Baba gave us. Even though he said he did not come to teach it, but to awaken us to the reality. Well, it means that he didn't come just to tell us about it, which he does do beautifully, but he's come to actually, as the awakener, to wake us up from this illusion. And that's why no one can ever experience God state through the mind. The mind is the very obstacle towards and stands in the way of the experience of the God state, according to what Bob is telling us. He says the mind, that's why he did the Mananash work, meant the annihilation of the mind. I always thought the mind was everything, it has all the beautiful things and everything, the powers and things, or whatever you can do, all the energy and everything. It was part of the mind condition, which it actually is, but it's not real. And that's what Baba is trying to tell us this. He says it's not real. You're living in a dream thinking that you're awake. He says the dream is not real. You think that the dream is real because that's what you see, but it's not real. And when you see what I'm talking about, as Baba would say, then you'll see that what I told you is the truth. You have to be woke up from that. And if you stick to the avatar, that's what's eventually going to happen. You're going to get woke up into the reality. And waking up is not the same as doing meditation or contemplation or concentration or any of the other disciplines that saints and yogis and such persons would do, because they themselves have yet to achieve the self-realized state. But the people that are in the God state, they know what and how the mind is created and what has to be done to free you from all the impressions that you've acquired over the ages. And we've been around a long, long time, all of us. This is not the first life that you've ever lived. And Baba is explaining this to us. We have a problem with memory. We can't remember past lives. And for that reason, it seems like you never were anywhere before. or that you'll ever be anywhere after you leave your perishable body. But the fact is that you've been around forever and you will continue to be around forever. Everyone is immortal, but their bodies are not. Bodies only have a short span of time. And when you can't, and when you're finished with one body that doesn't work anymore, you go and take another birth and another birth and another birth until you no longer have to come back anymore because you're finished with all the births. You're done with it. Uh, it's like they say, I'm tired of all this already. I've been around the block so many times, it's enough already. And enough is enough, and then you get ready for this, for the real thing, and you get drawn to a perfect master who has to show you the real thing. And this has been going on like this for ages. By the way, it's nothing new. This is going on forever. This has always been going on. But for the but if you're hearing it for the first time, it sounds like the first time that you're knowing about it. And so it's new, it's new, but there's nothing new about it. And having said all of that, I'm finished. It's Meherabad.